My pleasure to be back. How's it feeling? That's good. Wonderful. Team's all feeling good? Good. Motivated is good. We like that. 1 week to go. 1 week to go. That's awesome. Yeah, there's Edward. Edward's already here. He's already here. Hey, Edward. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here as always. I love that hat. I love that hat. That's awesome.
That's right.
This is my first time inside the office. This is good. Good to see you. Thanks for your help. Okay. I'm jealous. It's better than my hand.
Hi, good morning. Dear friends, thank you for coming. 各位全体朋友，大家好，非常欢迎大家过来这一次 Markham Thornhill 这个选区。And welcome to Markham Thornhill, my home, the most diverse riding in all of Ontario. My name is Sandra Tam. I'm the Liberal candidate for Markham Thornhill. And I'm very happy to be joined by my friends, Jonathan Sao from Don Valley North, and also Emily from Markham Unionville. And I would like to welcome our Liberal leader and the next Premier of Ontario, Stephen Deltuga.
All right, I think I have the clear sign to start. Well, good morning. Very, very happy to be here in lovely Markham Thornhill, to be standing alongside Sandra and Emily and Jonathan, to be here for a bit of a conversation about the hard work that the new Ontario Liberal team, three of whom are standing with me here today, have put into the work that is the kind of plan for this province, including here in York Region, of course my home region, but also where Jonathan's running in Don Valley North and right across Ontario. The kind of plan that will make sure that our province is truly a place to grow. You know, the past 4 years, we across this province have seen the cuts and the chaos and the havoc repeatedly because the Ford Conservatives don't have a plan. They don't have a plan to help hardworking families. They don't have a plan to help our students and our frontline education workers. They don't have a plan to help our nurses and our doctors. They don't have a plan to help our seniors. They have only one reason for being in power, and that is to reward their friends, the richest political donors, the buddies of Doug Ford. Every single decision that they make, trying to build a highway, the 413, that will make some of their richest political donors even richer. Talking about long-term care, where they want to continue to support and expand for-profit long-term care to make life better for shareholders, but not for our seniors who have suffered so much and deserve so much better. Their own health minister confirmed in February that in order to deal with the surgical and diagnostic backlog that is huge right now, that they would prioritize private hospitals rather than public. Their decision to insist in mandatory online learning in our schools and to make rapid tests more accessible or accessible to private schools and make it tougher for public schools to get them. Every single thing that they do, undermines, underfunds, and cuts at the public services that are supposed to be the foundation of Ontario. Ontario Liberals have a different plan. We have a different priority. We make different choices. Our priority is you, the hardworking families that live in Markham Thornhill and Markham Unionville and Don Valley North, Vaughan Woodbridge, my home community. We are going to make the right kind of investments. For example, in public education, this is not an abstract conversation for me. I think about my own daughters who attend publicly funded schools in Woodbridge where we live. We're going to bring back an optional grade 13 for our kids who've had so much difficulty during COVID. We're going to make sure that that grade 13 is structured and fully funded. We're going to bring class sizes all the way down to a hard cap of only 20 students for every elementary and secondary classroom in this province. We're going to get rid of that highway that I mentioned a second ago, the 413, and take $10 billion of your money and my money, and instead we're going to invest that in building new schools, 200 new schools, including here in York Region, and repairing 4,500 schools across this province. And what does that mean? That means in those classrooms, the windows will actually open and close. It means that the ventilation system will be state-of-the-art, so that the air our kids and teachers are breathing is safe and clean. It means that our families will actually have the support that they need in healthcare. That surgical backlog and diagnostic backlog, which right now is making it so much harder for Ontarians to get surgeries, including cancer surgeries that they need urgently. Replacements of joints, MRIs, CT scans, all of it. There are 1 million Ontarians, 1 million Ontarians on that backlog, on that list waiting. Over 2 years in our plan, we will invest $1 billion in our public healthcare system. So we have the nurses and the doctors, we have the operating rooms and the diagnostic imaging centers that are able to actually provide what we need around the clock. We're going to do this and more. In our seniors, for our seniors, people like my parents, people like my grandparents who I was so close to growing up. We're going to end for-profit long-term care. And we're going to fund a home care first guarantee for Ontario seniors so that if you are like my mom and dad, you can remain in your own home for life, that you can be safe and healthy and have the dignity that you've earned, because after all, it is our parents and grandparents who built this province, and we owe them everything. We owe them everything. I also know, we know, this team knows, that there is a huge affordability challenge that people in Ontario are facing, including here in York Region. Can't find an affordable home, can't find a place to rent a home. The price of gas at the pumps is going the wrong way. The cost of everything, including food, is going the wrong way as well. After 4 years of the Ford Conservatives, we see it clearly. The cost of living for pretty much everything in Ontario is going up and making it so much harder for families to have a quality of life that they deserve. That's why a number of days ago, I signed the Ontario Liberals' 19-point plan. We call it an Affordability Pledge. There are 19 specific commitments that I am making, that all of our candidates are making, to make your life easier, to make your life more affordable. And these are not ideas that'll take 4 years for us to implement. Think about this for a second. When he was running for Premier the first time, 4 years ago, Doug Ford said that if he wasn't elected, the price of gas would be at $2 per liter. That's what he said. He said, you, to the people of Ontario, you need to elect me. That's what Doug Ford said 4 years ago, so I can keep the cost of gas down. 4 years later, the cost of gas under Doug Ford has hit $2. It's gone above $2. And in the last 18 months alone, the price of gas per liter at the pumps has doubled under Doug Ford. So in our affordability pledge, we very proudly talk about some ideas like $1 transit fares and $40 monthly transit passes, buck a ride province-wide. If you take the GO train from Markham, if you happen to hop on the TTC down in Don Valley North, and you do it on a regular basis, which we want you to do, you're going to save hundreds of dollars per month, thousands of dollars, or more than $1,000 per year. Those are real savings that go right back into your pocket. And Ontario Liberals will deliver that within 100 days of taking office. Secondly, the price of gas at the pumps come July 1st. An Ontario Liberal government will take 5.7 cents per liter off the gas tax and 5.3 cents per liter off the fuel tax for a period of 6 months to help make your life more affordable if you happen to be using a car to get around. If you want to buy or lease an electric vehicle, like I did 5 years ago, we're going to make it easier and far more affordable for you to make that switch by bringing back an electric vehicle incentive program of up to $8,000 per vehicle for modestly priced vehicles and $1,500 back on the charging infrastructure you might need at home. If you're a senior and you're vulnerable, and we made this announcement, Sandra and I together, days ago, right here in Markham Thornhill, if you're a vulnerable senior, our Ontario Liberal Affordability Pledge will give you $1,000 back in an old age security pension top-up. And we're going to expand the criteria so more of our vulnerable seniors can actually access that. Lastly, on food, because I go grocery shopping every single Saturday for my family. So like so many of you, I see the price of food going up, up, up under Doug Ford. I see every single week how it's so hard to budget for families because the price changes so wildly. Well, in our Ontario Liberal plan, we will take the provincial HST off every single prepared food that's under $20. So if you go into the grocery store and you pick up lunch, or rotisserie chicken, or a side salad, or you go to a coffee shop, you and some friends, and you buy some muffins or bagels and some coffee, whatever it is, every single time you go into any business and purchase anything that's under $20 that's prepared food, every single time, you'll get an 8% discount because of the Ontario Liberal Affordability Pledge. These are just some of the examples of the ideas, the compelling and relatable ideas that this team of ours, this new Ontario Liberal team, is prepared to move on for you right away. And I'm just going to finish up my opening comments before I'd be happy to take all of your questions by saying, for those who have any doubt about whether or not Doug Ford and his team can be trusted, let me just say, like so many of you, I remember what happened a number of weeks or months ago with respect to traditional Chinese medicine. I remember what took place. I stood there with so many members of our caucus and our team on the front lawn at Queen's Park for the rally that took place because for no reason at all, something they never promised to do, the Ford Conservatives decided to unravel all of the work that the community put into working with Michael Chan and so many others in the former Liberal government to make sure that traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture were elevated and supported and had the ability to be self-regulated and self-governed and properly funded and supported. The fact that with no warning, with no real outreach or consultation, that Doug Ford and his team decided to take all of that incredible work and collaboration that the community put into making the right decision years ago, and at the stroke of a pen tried to destroy it all. Well, that tells you everything you need to know about how they cannot be trusted, how they do not have a plan that will move this province forward. How, if elected June 2nd, we know the Ford Conservatives will continue to cut and deliver chaos. And they'll continue to do it in a way that holds Ontarians down and holds us back. Ontario Liberals are making different choices, better choices. And the other thing that we know is that there is clear momentum that is growing around the Ontario Liberal team and the Ontario Liberal plan. And so there is only one way to stop Doug Ford next Thursday. Only one way to get that done, to get that delivered. And that's to vote for a strong, progressive, Liberal government at Queen's Park that includes Sandra and Jonathan and Emily and the rest of the new Ontario Liberal team who have the capacity, the talent, and the drive to deliver for you starting on day one. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
When you have a question, please wave your hand, number one, and also state your name and your outlet. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Del Duca. This is Grant Wolf from FM 1059, the Chinese Radio Network. I have a question. Now it's just 1 week away to the election day.
That's right.
The new poll shows that the Conservative is leading for 10%. Do you worry about the situation, and what we will do in the last week?
First of all, as I said just a second ago, and by the way, this is why we have election campaigns. Because if we just make our decisions about governments based on what we see in the occasional poll, we wouldn't need campaigns. We could do all this a different way. But the good part, the beautiful part about democracy is that over the course of, in this case, 28 days, all of our candidates are out there working hard. They're talking to their neighbors and their friends, as am I, touring right around this province, talking about the new Ontario Liberal plan that will make our province a place to grow. You know, I learned from my parents and grandparents, there's no shortcut to success. It's just about working hard. It's about earning trust, keeping trust, That's what we're doing every step of the way. And you know what else I see? In particular, since the leaders' debate of a number of days ago, where on that stage it was clear that the only team, the only party that has a clear chance of stopping Doug Ford is the Ontario Liberal Party. And that's evidenced in all of the momentum that is growing around our candidates and our plan. And so we're going to keep working hard. But again, I want to stress, if you, like me, are deeply, deeply concerned about 4 more years of cuts and chaos and havoc from Doug Ford, which is all he knows how to deliver, well, you have one choice. And the only choice to stop Doug Ford is the new Ontario Liberal team, and that's what we're going to do.
Next question. Over there.
Yeah, this is from the Sadie's radio station.
No problem.
Yeah, so. Yeah, so Doug Ford is flat.
I can hear you though.
Yeah. Okay. It's pledged to change the infrastructure. How do you identify which project is the priority, which one shouldn't? Let's say, for example, 407, right? So the Conservative Party actually sold the right for 99 years.
Yeah.
How are you going to correct the wrong? Right the wrong?
Well, first of all, I spent 3.5 years as the transportation minister in this province. And so I know exactly what work, and I'm emphasizing the word work, and effort is required to successfully build infrastructure. Do you know what Doug Ford's really good at? He's really good at talking. And he's really good at putting out press releases. And he's really good at reading the scripts that other people write for him. He's not so good at actually getting the work done. Every single time he's got the opportunity to show up, which is what leaders need to do, can't be found. Do you know, months ago when the city of Ottawa was dealing with that illegal occupation, remember when all the people were on Parliament Hill, how horrifying that was? Most premiers would show up. They would go see the people in Ottawa. Are you okay? They'd be talking to the small businesses who were so badly hurt. Do you know where Doug Ford was? Do you guys remember? He chose to go snowmobiling at his cottage instead of showing up in Ottawa. We just saw this past Saturday, pretty horrible storms, right? Here in the GTA, I mean, in my backyard, trees came down. We saw it everywhere. Well, in parts of Eastern Ontario and communities just outside of Ottawa and in Ottawa, the devastation is actually quite horrible. Thousands of people without any electricity, small businesses that can't open. That happened on Saturday. I went to those communities on Monday because I wanted to talk to the residents. I wanted to meet with the municipal leaders and our colleague Amanda Samard, so I was there. It's now Thursday, I think, right? I've lost track of my days. It's Thursday. Doug Ford still hasn't gone. He was engaged in political gimmicks and games that he was playing here in the GTA, instead of actually going out to Clarence Rockland and to Ottawa and to Hammond and other communities to see the devastation. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because fundamentally, he simply cannot be trusted to deliver because he thinks the job is sending out a press release, talking a lot, and then disappearing when the work is required. Do you know what I know about Ontario families? Ontario families work hard. My family, since the day they arrived in this country, has worked hard. The only person who doesn't seem to have the desire to work hard is Doug Ford. And I just don't think that's good enough. So when it comes to infrastructure, our plan, fully costed, very balanced, very responsible, shows we will build public transit everywhere. We will support highway expansions and extensions and rehabilitations where they make sense, when they make sense. We will not build Highway 413. We will stop that highway once and for all. That'll be the first thing that our new cabinet does. And we'll take the $10 billion that Doug Ford wants to waste on that highway that's not going to help any of you, and we're going to put that money into schools, publicly funded schools here in Markham, then Don Valley North and right across Ontario. But we actually will deliver because Ontario Liberals are determined to work as hard as you work.
Next question. Over here.
This morning you announced that my name is Ray Chan from Singapore. Here again. Yeah, and this morning you mentioned that you end the for-profit long-term care.
Yes.
So how long will it take and how the process?
How would we do it?
Yeah.
So first of all, today I repeated today what I'd said actually standing with Jonathan a number of weeks ago in Don Valley North. And that day, Jonathan and I were in the backyard of a couple of seniors from his riding, the Lesnovs. And we were in their backyard and we talked about the Ontario Liberal plan to revolutionize seniors care. Now this one is really important to me personally. I mentioned in my opening remarks today that growing up I was so close to all four of my grandparents. My mom's parents, my dad's parents, and of course my mom and dad are now, they're a little bit older, they're in their 80s now, and they have a few health challenges like many of our seniors do. And what my mom and dad tell me every time we talk about this issue, what most seniors, almost every senior I've ever spoken with tells me, is that their #1 priority is to remain in their own home. They don't want to go into nursing homes. They don't want to be in institutions. So #1, what we will do is invest $4.4 billion in our fully costed plan over 4 years to make sure that we deliver a home care first guarantee. That 400,000 additional seniors will be able to remain at home and get care at home. Maybe that's care of making a meal or taking a shower or just a friendly face to have a conversation with. They'll get that care so they can remain at home. We also know that there are some seniors and some families that do need long-term care. We know that. That's why in our plan, we will build 30,000 new spaces and rehabilitate 28,000 additional spaces in long-term care specifically. And we're going to do that in a different way. As I mentioned, we're going to end for-profit long-term care by 2028, and we're going to make sure that the not-for-profit and municipal sector are invested in and have the capacity to take over the private operations that currently exist. We've specified in our fully costed plan funding each and every year over the next 6 years to make sure we can accomplish this goal. And can I just say, I know in many communities across this province, including in the Chinese community, that there's been extraordinary work that's being done to deliver community-based long-term care for our seniors. And I know in the Chinese community and in so many other communities how we do respect our elders and how we do support our parents and grandparents. And Ontario Liberal government wants to keep that going in the not-for-profit way with proper investments and again, doing our best, moving heaven and earth to keep our seniors at home and to give them the support that they need because again, they've earned it. They've earned it. They sacrificed, they worked hard, they built this province and country. We cannot abandon them the way that Doug Ford continues to choose to abandon them. Ontario Liberals will do it differently and we'll do it better. Thank you.
Next question. Over there, please.
My name is Helen from National Television. I just wanted to ask with regards to your new plan for including having seniors stay at home and also including how you have wanted to cap the class sizes for 20. This means that there will be additional personnel that are necessary. How many people do you anticipate you would need and how do you plan on bringing them into the sector?
So on the education side, to cap class sizes at 20 in both elementary and secondary, and that's a hard cap, not a fluid cap, it's a hard cap of 20. We estimate that we would need 10,000 new teachers in the system. We also know in our publicly funded school system right now that there are thousands of, well actually they're not in the system, there are thousands of teachers in this province who are members of the College of Teachers, which means they have their certification, but they are not currently working in publicly funded schools. Some of them might be in the private system, but I suspect that thousands of others have chosen to leave the profession because of the way that Doug Ford has disrespected them, because of the way he's made it difficult, more difficult to teach by letting class sizes go up and by constantly attacking frontline workers, including in healthcare and education. You know, for 4 years, Doug Ford has made it evident, clear, that he doesn't support publicly funded education. If you think about the last 2 years that my daughters have gone through, like so many kids in this province trying to learn through their computer screens, being isolated from their friends, you would think that the first lesson Doug Ford would have learned about education is that online learning is not the best way to learn. But instead of learning that lesson, just this past February, his government sent out a letter to all of the public school boards in this province. And that letter said that despite how difficult the past 2 years have been, the Ford Conservatives are still insisting on mandatory online learning going forward in high school. That's unbelievable to me. So we will end mandatory online learning. We're going to cap class sizes at 20. We're going to bring back the optional grade 13 for those kids who need a little bit of extra time to deal with their learning loss, to figure out what they want to do next in life. And it's not just a grade 13, it'll be funded and structured. So it's not just arbitrary or random. For those kids who need a little bit of a break to catch up, given how tough the last 2 years have been, we'll make sure that they have the time and the space and the proper support to do that. Yeah.
So does that mean you don't necessarily agree with how Ford has handled the pandemic? Because part of the online learning was to avoid transmission in classrooms.
Well, no, think about it this way. All the way throughout this pandemic, Ontario Liberals have put forward a series of ideas, plans. So in the first wave, we talked about shrinking class sizes to 15 so that our kids could be properly spaced out. This is before we had vaccines. We talked about making sure we had better ventilation in schools. We actually put forward at that point in time, in the summer of 2020, in the first wave of the pandemic, a fully costed and comprehensive plan that would have helped make it easier to keep our schools open. The sad part is that all the way along, Doug Ford has refused to make the investment or lift a finger or make the effort. Remember what I said before, he doesn't like making the effort, right? He's done it all the way through. That's one of the reasons that our schools in this province remained closed as long as they did. It's one of the reasons. I know we had a pandemic. I didn't want my kids to be put at risk, but if I had known for a fact that the air ventilation was modern, that they actually had truly small class sizes, that they had proper supports in place, it would have reduced my anxiety. And I think anxiety that parents across the province have felt, it would have reduced that anxiety as our kids went back to school. The real issue is, where do we go from here? Doug Ford wants to pretend the pandemic didn't even happen. You look at his plan, look at his budget. There's nothing in there that's going to deal with clearing the surgical backlog. There's nothing in there that's going to shrink class sizes or help set our kids up for success. There's nothing in there that's going to help support seniors and keep them safe and healthy. He just wants to pretend it didn't happen. And I think the reason he wants to pretend it didn't happen is that for his friends, his biggest political donors, the richest of the rich in this province, they're doing okay. They don't need what the rest of Ontario families need, the same way that we need it. So he's completely missing in action for what matters. Ontario Liberals are making different choices, choices that will make life easier and more affordable for hardworking families.
Next question. With the last question. Here.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm from Newport Daily. So I have two questions to ask you. You always talk about the affordability issue. So, and you also mentioned, when we go to the grocery store, the price is too high. So what is your plan to reduce the food cost so people can, like you, go to the restaurant, enjoy steak?
Yeah, well, exactly.
And also, Liberal government introduced the healthcare tax.
Introduced
healthcare tax.
I couldn't hear you.
Health tax. So
in 2003.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you have any plan to cancel this tax? Because
So-
this is a lot for our family.
So number one, I'll start with the second one first. It was a healthcare premium, and the reason we introduced the premium long before I became an MPP, by the way, long before I became an MPP in 2012. You're talking about a decision that was made a decade earlier in 2003. But let's remember why that took place. It took place because conservatives had been in power, and they had cut and underfunded and put at risk our public healthcare system. And so a Liberal government that I wasn't part of, but a Liberal government decided we needed to invest more in healthcare and chose to make that decision so that you had public healthcare that would keep you and your family safe and healthy. Well, guess what? It's like we're back to where we were, and you know why? Because now again in Ontario, there's a Conservative Premier, and for 4 years, that Conservative Premier has cut, has underfunded, has disrespected, undermined all of the core public services we rely upon, including healthcare. He wants to prioritize private healthcare, many of whom are his political donors, to help deal with the surgical and diagnostic backlog. Ontario Liberals believe in public healthcare. I believe Ontarians believe in public healthcare. The good news about our plan, which is fully costed, you can all find it at ontarioliberal.ca, our website, where you can see in black and white exactly what we would invest in healthcare and in other critical areas to help support families with what they need. Our plan is fiscally responsible. The only tax increases that we include in our plan, which brings me to the food question, 2 tax increases. Corporations who earn profits over $1 billion, $1 billion, will pay a little bit more in corporate income tax, and individuals who are high income earners who make over $500,000 per year will pay 2 additional points on their personal income tax. Together, those 2 initiatives will bring in about $500 million in revenue for the province, and it's that money that we're going to use to make food purchases more affordable for you. So anytime you go into a restaurant in this wonderful mall or a grocery store and you want to pick up any kind of prepared food that's under $20, anything, you'll save 8% each and every single transaction. So a number of days ago, Sandra, you and I went into a business right here, just next door. And we sat down, and the food was delicious, by the way, let me tell you. And we both made a purchase that was below $20. It was lunchtime. Well, every single time an Ontarian goes into a restaurant like that one and purchases anything under $20, under Ontario Liberals, you'll save 8%. That is a real savings to make your life easier and more affordable. Like everything else that's in our Affordability Pledge, all spelled out in black and white. Doug Ford has no plan to do all of this. Andrea Horvath's platform has changed 7 times in 4 weeks, and it wasn't fully costed until several weeks after they released it, and even then the costing doesn't actually accomplish what they claim they want to accomplish. So, only Ontario Liberals have the plan that is transparent, balanced, fully costed, and the team, Sandra and Jonathan and Emily and everyone else, who will be able to deliver starting on day 1.
So that's the end of the question period. I want to thank everybody who are here today, especially the media friends and also the leader, Stephen Leodunga and all the candidates here. There will be refreshment at the back, and when you're hungry, you take a bite. And also, if you want to talk to the individual candidates here one-on-one, please go ahead and vote.